The following is a YouTube-based audio production, brought to you by J.E. Realize. Well, we had to come full circle. Time to do another of this thing. You know the routine? This video is about 10 shows I have watched a good amount of, but not anymore. I need not bore you with any more details. Let's go into this. The Big Bang Theory. At least it had a series finale, so if I know what I'm doing, I may go into binge-watching the series. I've watched some episodes in syndication on and off across multiple seasons, making my knowledge of the show a bit inconsistent, but I get the gist. If you don't know what this show is, I'm afraid I can't help you. I am generally miffed by the quality of current laugh track comedies, as I'd like to call sitcoms, but there are a few shows like this that I would be glad to go through every episode. This show in particular has a few quirks that I would enjoy, even if not even I get all the scientific concepts sometimes. After all, I'm only 3 IQ points shy of genius. But one thing about this show, this is one of those shows where fans make headcanon saying someone is autistic or is on the spectrum without anyone in charge of the show confirming it. Guys, the creator said Sheldon Cooper is not autistic. Stop trying to lump me in with him. I'm a weirdo, but not that much a weirdo. Speaking of which, I also have to address that theory about Lilo from Lilo and... Oh. Okay, it appears I'm getting off topic. Let's move on to the next bullet point. Metabots. I put this show on this list because I know I watched a lot of this series. The problem is I don't remember much of it. But to counter that point, at least I remember playing a GBA video game of it. It seems pretty fun from an in-world standpoint, what with the fighting robots and the antis and the medals. I really should find those video games again. But yeah, besides that, I got nothing. Bravest Warriors. Yes, that cartoon hangover show also written by Pendleton Ward, the guy who created Adventure Time. I was about to watch the first 2 seasons back when Verve wasn't really off the ground yet. It seems a good set of stories in a neat world, if a bit raunchy at times. But after season 2, I didn't have my hopes up. After all, everything fell apart in the season 2 finale. It reminds me of Star vs. the Forces of Evil season 3, which reminds me, when are they coming out with season 4? But back to the point, I have no immediate itch to go back into it. Being Puppycat. There are many times I wish events from a TV series would happen to me, just because of the circumstances the show sets up. An adult trying to start up her life has barely any money to pay the bills because she can't hold down a job. That's just like me, relatable. Then a crossover between a puppy dog and a kitty cat shows up and ends up exposing her to the magical world of magical temp jobs. Where do I sign up? I got to watch all of Season 1 on YouTube once, and while I have several questions concerning Bee and her state of mind, the world seems cool enough. Of course, the main reason I didn't continue watching is because I don't have the streaming service, which all boils down to the fact that life is not a fairy tale. After all, there are no Disney princes. Johnny Test. Let's talk about some of the mistakes I made as a youngster. It's a Canadian import where the premise is, main character is a mischief maker. Main character has a bipedal talking dog. Main character has twin sisters who invent stuff. Stuff gets used, mischief is made, mischief gets cleaned up, and scene. Sometimes there are recurring bad guys, but besides that it's pretty episodic and the humor can get pretty LCD. LCD in this case stands for lowest common denominator. You should have known this from math class. I don't expect to go back into it or want to. It's lost whatever appeal it had to begin with. Shaq vs. I forgot what the show was called until I looked it up. It was simple. Shaq vs. Points for that. Basically, Shaq steps outside his comfort zone by challenging the best in other skills at their own game. Crazy stuff. The series barely hit double digits before ending, which I get. It's a novel concept, but not terribly interesting by itself. But hey, I wasn't disappointed. Chaotic. Man, I wish this show continued. It has a pretty bizarre premise. Players get sent into a game hub to play the game for real as the characters of a world-famous card game, while they're also doing stuff in the real world. None of this is explained because guess what? The higher-ups pulled the plug on this series after 3 seasons. I even remember buying a book talking about the series back in 2019, not realizing until then how much of everything involving Chaotic, Param, the 6 Tribes, the Codemasters, music, basically everything was left unresolved. I watched a lot of the episodes across 2 design studios and even had the Overworld and Underworld starter decks at some point. There's so much the show still has to bring us. And I say this show deserves a revival at some point. Say yeah! Also, Peyton's a pervert, just putting it out there. Which, let's get this out of the way. This show aired on Jetix. I won't get into a Death of Jetix rant because that deserves its own video, but apparently it's both a TV series and a book series? The series used to be in hybrid books that contained comic book pages in it. I did not know that. But of course, I knew the TV series. 5 teenage girls were chosen to be the guardians of a magical kingdom, and each mastered a classical element. Except for the leader, of whom I don't know any element assigned. Maybe it's heart. The one part I haven't watched was most of the alphabet season. Of course, the alphabet season, where every episode is named after its position in alphabetical order. Why is that not a TV trope? Admittedly, it had this bit where each of the Guardians discovered new powers, but I don't remember much else. But it did get me paranoid of inanimate objects conspiring against me. Thanks, Will! Total Drama presents The Redonkulous Race. Back to Canadian imports for a sec. I used to like Total Drama, I used to follow the show, I even got to the point where I watched the Italian dub because the English version has yet to premiere. Good times. Admittedly, the show's not the best, but I can stand it more than most current reality shows out there. And then the creators decided to make their version of The Amazing Race, so I watched that too. But since it's on this list, I had to say I didn't watch all of it. I was really close, but just stopped watching before the final episode. Why? Because back then I had a certain animosity toward the place where the final challenge would be held. New York City. So I never got to watch the finale, and I never got to know who won. Saying that, this also means I didn't watch the Total Drama World Tour episode also held in said city. Luckily that episode was filler. Maybe I'll watch it again if the creators go back to globetrotting and give us a challenge held in good old California. But considering they're retconning everything by turning our favorite characters into children, I'm not holding my breath. Ultraman Tiger. Now this is a show you probably haven't heard of. I know I watched the episodes when it was out on Foxbox, a Saturday morning programming block you also may have forgotten, but I hardly remember the show besides the 3 modes of the Tiger. I did some research exclusively for this list, and dang, it was hard to find any consistent information on it in English. Reason why. The show wasn't fully dubbed into English. The Fox execs only aired up to half the series before deciding not to go any further, meaning the remaining episodes weren't released as dubbed. Dang it, Foxbox! But the series seems to be about the Ultraman Tiger, formerly savior of our world, locked away in stone, brought back by a human host to defend against the great evil wanting another chance to destroy our world again. You know, basic giant robot stuff, except Ultraman Tiger is not a robot. I don't know what it is. And the lore of the series goes far beyond what I expected. The Ultraman series extends all the way back to the 1960s. And it's still ongoing. All I gotta say about that is, Power Rangers, eat your heart out. And that's my list for now. This is the end of my second cycle through this series, and I have more of this planned as well as spin-offs into anime and movies. So then, do the feedback thing, like, comment, subscribe, or dislike, save my voice. I dare you. Follow me on Twitter at JERealize. This has been JERealize. I'll see you next time, and there will be a next time. This concludes our YouTube-based audio production. I hope you enjoy, and I wish you farewell.